Welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast, where Matt McClellan and I have a lot to discuss today. And Matt, it's times like this that I'm semi glad I'm not a sports writer anymore. Because don't get me wrong, I love all this as a fan. I love all this breaking news that we've been getting over the past week, whether it's the MLB trade deadline, the NBA draft. Some good news, some not so good. And I know one not so good news is near and dear to our heart as Colts fans, as word is now received that Carson Wentz will undergo foot surgery and is expected to miss 5 to 12 weeks. And to be honest, we have a semi good idea of who's going to be the starter, but I can tell Matt does not like it.
I don't. Then again, I wasn't sold on Wentz anyway, and then anything less than that, I mean, Nick Foles, don't bring in Nick Foles. He had a good run in the playoffs. That's it. He had a good game as the Rams quarterback. That's it. That man belongs in the Secure the Bag Hall of Fame. I don't think he belongs behind Quentin Nelson. I'm sorry, Colts fans. I'm sorry.
I have a couple of things to say about that. What, to your point, Nick Foles is great in an Eagles uniform. If you look at the best stints of his career have all come in Philadelphia, whether it was his 27-2 touchdown interception ratio as his first full season as an Eagles starter. And then, of course, we all remember the Super Bowl run after Wentz went down. But outside of that, with his stints with the Rams, the Bears, just nothing to really be sold on an NFL career.
He got beat out by Andy Dalton and Mitchell Trubisky.
I know. And then I forgot he didn't even last long in Jacksonville either. They chose Minshew over him. So
mustache power, baby. Mustache power.
The second thing I wanted to say is that if the Colts were to sign Foles, this has got to be some sort of hex around Carson Wentz's career. Because Nick Foles, I think, played a big part in why Wentz needed to leave Philly. So if he follows him to Indy, he might as well just quit football at that point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even if he did come back healthy next season, if they brought in Foles and he did well, I think that would mentally destroy Carson Wentz. And I don't mean that as he's a weak-minded individual type way. It's just fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would just rack my mind if it happened to me. I mean, I can't imagine with all the pressure of being a pro athlete. So that's another reason why I'm not as high on Nick Foles. Give me Marcus Mariota if he's cheap, because the Raiders may try to play hardball. Give me Gardner Minshew. You can keep Nick Foles far away from the Colts. I know he loves Frank Reich. I know that's what all the hot take tweeters are tweeting about. No. If Carson Wentz isn't in Indianapolis, I don't think they're in a very different situation than they are now. Those first 5 games are literally the schedule from hell. You're going up against that NFC West, which is the best division in football. You've got Baltimore. You've got the revamped Titans offense. It was going to be tough anyway. There's really no point in fretting over it because, if anything, it's better because if Carson Wentz sucked the first few games and you were still in the same position, you were still 1-5, you lost your first-round draft pick. Mm-hmm. Now, if Jacob Eason comes in and sucks, Marcus Mariota comes in and sucks, you're 1-5, and you still have a first-round draft pick that maybe got a little bit better from your losing that Philadelphia doesn't get that you can use to actually get a quarterback who's not 48 years old or hurt all the time. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't feel like it today because, like I said, those first 5 games are going to be murder unless the Colts can keep it at 14-10. With some of those offenses ain't happening. But the division's bad. Let's not kid ourselves. Tennessee is good, but they're vulnerable. That defense still needs some improvement. The Texans stink. We don't know what they're going to look like. The Jaguars, Tim Tebow is playing for the Jaguars. There's a chance that if Carson Wentz gets back and plays a little bit better than he did in Philadelphia, because by God, if 90-year-old Phillip Rivers can throw the ball down the field and not get picked off as often, there's hope. But right now, stop it. Nick Foles ain't happening. And if it does happen, they deserve everything that comes with it. So that's my 2 cents.
And, you know, as Colts fans, me growing up, I was so accustomed to knowing who our quarterback was going to be for the first 10 years of me being a fan, essentially. But then ever since the Peyton neck procedures, it's almost been like there's just been that question mark every year of who's going to be the Colts quarterback. And we had a good one in Luck, but obviously I'm going to throw some shade at Ryan Grigson, and he messed that up. Essentially ruined a franchise quarterback's career. And then, of course, you sign a 90-year-old with 20 children, Phillip Rivers, and now we signed an injury-prone Carson Wentz. Sorry, it's a lot different than when I was growing up a Colts fan. You knew who the quarterback was going to be, and now it's just you don't know. And that's and one side of it for me, it's interesting. It makes you glued to your phone and all your updates on the news side of it, but at the other end, it's like I just want that stability. But I mean, and maybe some more positive news. Well, maybe not if you're a Cubs fan. I know you're a big baseball guy. We had the MLB trade deadline go down over the past week, and I want to say one thing that is positive before we talk about how the Cubs just completely cleaned out their clubhouse. The Dodgers, oh my
God.
Kershaw and Scherzer in the same rotation. Two of the most dominant pitchers of this era in the same rotation.
Not to mention Trey Turner.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. A player that's having as good of a season as Trey Turner is in a lot of ways getting overshadowed because they signed Mad Max.
I really don't. The NL West is going to be the biggest bloodbath in the history of baseball, and I am here for it. The Padres acquired an infielder who was an all-star starter to sit on the bench. The Giants acquired Chris Bryant. I mean, it's going to be going down the stretch. That's going to be a brutal, just absolutely brutal division. But I do give the edge to the Dodgers because, like you said, when your front end rotation is Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw, and then you've got what's that guy? Walker Buehler. There we go. You got Walker Buehler. You've got Urias. You've got a rotation. You just don't have two guys. You've got a rotation, and you've got an offense. And I have to give the edge to the Dodgers at the moment. Now, of course, what we're forgetting about the Dodgers too is because of the horrible, horrible story that goes with that is that. Remember, they had Trevor Bauer at one point as well.
Mm-hmm.
And throwing all those horrible allegations out the window, which definitely should be taken very seriously, no question.
Absolutely.
He needs to be on administrative leave for however long it takes the MLB to figure out if there was any wrongdoing. And if there's wrongdoing, he needs to be suspended for as long as humanly imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
But if that turns out a little bit more positive for him, then you throw him in. I mean, it's just crazy what that division is capable of. And I'm not saying that this was the most, well, yes, I am going to say it. This was the most exciting trade deadline in my lifetime. I can't remember a trade deadline in baseball where big names, Javier Baez, Max Scherzer, they're just getting thrown around like, a paper cup to other teams. And it's like, I don't even think the Cubs got a top 50. No, they did. They got Nick Madrigal. But it was like the Cubs, for cleaning out their entire clubhouse, really didn't get the haul I expected. Because I guess those guys are getting old and they're a bit expensive. But man, and you want to talk about instant impact? Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo all hit a home run in their first
debut.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was one of the most active and exciting trade deadlines I remember, period, in any sport. I mean, it was just great. Great entertainment. Great hot takes from everybody, and more importantly, we're going to see some great baseball going into the twilight of summer, headed towards that World Series championship.
And of course, with all these moves that were made on trade deadline, I just kind of hate that my Cardinals just got older in the rotation.
Yeah, the average age for the Cardinals rotation is 38 now.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, John Lester had a decent year. He hit a home run or two, so.
But this is a pitcher, man. I mean, I'm not really concerned about him hitting home runs. I'm worried about him not giving up home runs.
You say that, but just wait. You just wait. Yeah, I
But
mean, the Reds got a couple of relievers who came in and had a pretty good impact, but it feels like, like I said last week, it feels like the Reds and the Cardinals at this point are just treading water right now because the Brewers are about 9 games up, and I don't trust Milwaukee, but they did get Willie Adames to start like all of this trade deadline flurry, and he's been an instant impact type guy. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see that wild card. That wild card is what's going to make the difference. Like that's the thing you got to aim for is to hope and pray that those NL West teams just cannibalize each other to the point where with an easy schedule you can sneak on in. So, and then in baseball anything's possible. So that's the hope for our teams, I suppose. Good old Midwestern baseball being neglected again. So what a shame.
John Lester's getting his first start tomorrow, so we'll see how he does in his Cardinal debut. But enough about everything else going on in the sports world. I think it's time to actually get into the topic of this podcast. And for those who have missed it, you missed one of the most entertaining press conferences I have seen in a long time. And we are referring to the press conference where Aaron Rodgers decided that he was going to return to the Packers for the 2021 season. But it wasn't the fact that he's rejoining the Packers that was even the main story of that press conference. Matt, we make a lot of movie references on this podcast, and I'm thinking specifically of the scene from Captain Phillips, where the pirate is just looking at Tom Hanks straight in the face and says, "Look, I am the captain now." And for 20 minutes, that is what Aaron Rodgers just stood up and told the Packers organization in front of the entire world. He is the captain now. And so, Matt, I'm going to let you take the floor on what you thought of that press conference because I pretty much summed my end of it right there.
I mean, you're right. I mean, man, I think that may be the best press conference in my lifetime. And I've seen a lot of good press conferences in my lifetime. I've seen the "I'm a man, I'm 40" rant happen in real time. I've seen we're talking about practice. I've seen so many great ones. I've seen Clown Question Bro. And that one, just the eloquence and needlepoint precision that Aaron Rodgers goes after not the coach, not his teammates, but the ownership and general manager of his own team was just so startling to me. He is just eviscerating them, telling them that he was afraid basically to end his career with them because of the way they've treated veterans in the past. And he wasn't going to go down that road. It was defiant. It was brutal. It was everything and more I can imagine. And everything I wanted from like this press conference, that it feels like the Get Ups and the Jim Romes and the Colin Cowards of the world had been building up for like the past 8 months when we knew on draft night something was amiss in Green Bay. And this just felt like the great payoff to like it's the Chekhov's gun of the NFL. If you using another movie reference, you introduce something on draft night and it pays off in Act 3, and this is Act 3. This is the beginning of the last dance for the Green Bay Packers. It was just amazing. And what really blew my mind too is that like the minute that comes out, we get word of the Randall Cobb trade happening. And it's just like, wow. It's like they tried to like please Aaron Rodgers the minute those words left his mouth. And it's just like, well, I don't know if you're going to do that. And I mean, the way he mentions like those other guys like Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, and several others, it was just a brutal takedown. But I think it was deserved. I think it was totally deserved. When you're frustrated with someone, we very rarely in America get the chance to come out and like just destroy your boss. And it felt like a win for like everybody who's ever wanted to like just tell their boss he's an idiot or they're an idiot. And it's just really cool to see because I was watching and I'm like, I cannot believe he's coming back. This sounds like the press conference that you drop when the plane is running on the runway and you're going to Denver to play with Jerry Jeudy and the gang. I mean, woo. It was just so fun it was amazing to watch. It was full of great sound bites we're going to be hearing for years. And more importantly, I feel like it was one of the most justified outbursts, well, not even outbursts, justified takedowns of an organization in recent sports history.
I'm still trying to catch my breath over it and just put in words just what I heard. I kind of talked with you pre-podcast recording, and I had to turn the volume up just to make sure I was hearing what he was saying right. And as you said, the Randall Cobb move just seemed like they were backpedaling a little bit, just because look, he just exposed them to the world. So let's get him a move that makes him a little happy, so we don't look as bad as we just got blasted on live television. But honestly, with Aaron Rodgers, I'm surprised he's still there. I've been saying for a while that I'm waiting for us just to get the update that he's going somewhere else. I thought for sure this was going to be the offseason that he was going to leave Green Bay, but obviously he's playing at least one more year. I'm convinced that this will be the last season in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers. And look, I had said before, last season, after not this past draft, but the draft prior, where we all knew going into the draft that the one thing that the Packers needed, the one thing that their star quarterback wanted, was for them to draft a receiver. And who do they draft? None other than Jordan Love, the guy that is expected to replace Aaron Rodgers. A very similar move to what they did to Brett Favre when Aaron Rodgers was drafted, which I think even alloys Aaron Rodgers' point even more. Brett Favre still felt like he had plenty of football left in him, but yet, what do? Draft Aaron Rodgers. And my big thing was, I thought at the time, this past season for Aaron Rodgers, in which he won the MVP, was like the biggest FU to the organization he could have done at the time. And the reason I say this is we all know he wanted and that the Packers needed receivers in that last draft. They instead draft his replacement. So what does he come out and do? He has one of the best seasons of his career and wins MVP. It was more one of that, look how good I am moment. And I loved it from that angle. So, but I thought with that being said, that last season was going to be his last season with the Packers. And kind of like what you alluded to, I thought Denver was going to be the place for him to end up playing because of given the reputation that Peyton Manning going there on the tail end of his career is now starting to build in Denver as like a quarterback, as becoming a destination for quarterbacks on their last leg to go out and win a Super Bowl before they retire. It would be a great story for beat writers everywhere. But we do get one more season in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. But it eludes the next question, though. Given what Aaron Rodgers exposed with Green Bay and given the state of player and organization relationships, it shows how we're progressing as a sports society on how much players are getting more power nowadays. And Matt, do you think that is good or bad for sports?
Oh, it's definitely good. I mean, when you it's weird to think about stuff like this because we don't really think about the way, and the Olympics has also brought some shine into this on this topic too, which is like the mental state of athletes, which is we expect so much from them. We want them to be role models. We want them to be buff. We want them to be winners. That we don't often think when we're fans about how an organization, how a setting affects their mindset. So I know a lot of people were complaining and moaning about how Aaron Rodgers was spoiled and a diva for what he was doing. But I mean, we've all been in a situation like that before. We've all wanted to just leave a job and go because we're tired of the way we're being treated. We're not getting the things we need, and we can't. So I think in a way, a lot of common people get kind of jealous when they see stuff like this. Because, when you have as much power as a guy like Aaron Rodgers does in his organization, and then even the sphere of influence of Wisconsin, because, they love the Packers up there, that you can do that. And really, you don't have to deal with some boss who's going to yell at you and worry about like not being able to go home to your actress girlfriend and like in your mansion. We don't get that option. So of course you get a little bit jealous because you think they have everything given to them already and they're living a life that you want to live. But I think it's great because athletes, they go through injuries, they go through pain, they go through loss just like anybody else does. And if you're good enough in a society like ours that values athletics that much to dictate that much of your career, then you should. You should take that power, because if we were in that same position, we would take it too, Les. And anyone listening to this, you would take it too. You would be pissed too. You would do the exact same thing, and don't tell me you wouldn't. Don't give me that I'm going to take it on the chin and just deal with the card I'm dealt with. No. If you had control over a situation like that, you would assert control over that situation and you would get what you wanted. And just because Aaron Rodgers did it and you don't like it doesn't mean it's not going to keep happening. I mean, we live in a world that's driven by money and success. It's why we have a mega conference happening in the American South now with Texas and Oklahoma. And if you're able to do that, then you should be able to use that power for whatever you want, if they'll allow you. So yeah, they should. I think it's going to make sports more competitive because it's going to pit organizations against each other in terms of letting players have the power. And once your draft contract is up and you have a free agent and you're a free agent and if you go to, I'll use your basketball team as an example. If you want to go to Miami and you're debating between going to Miami and staying at your hometown, staying at your home team, and your home team is not treating you right, but Miami's going to give you the power, people are going to go to Miami. It's going to force people. It's going to make sports more competitive because now you have organizations who are going to be competing with each other to prove they're the best fit for players. And it's not just from a personnel standpoint anymore, because players talk, players communicate. They want to get together. They're going to play together, and they're going to do it at a place where they feel empowered. And so when I think about a thing like Aaron Rodgers, it's just the natural progression. Sports contracts get more inflated. We demand more as an entertainment-hungry society. They demand more as a human being. It's all just a natural progression. I think this is just the future, and I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's not going to hurt the integrity of the game if Aaron Rodgers wants his team to go out and get Randall Cobb. That's not going to change a damn thing at all. Doesn't change the history of the sport. It just changes on-field personnel, and God only knows Randall Cobb's like 90 years old himself. It doesn't change much of anything. So when I think of this, it's just a natural progression. It's a good thing. It's going to make sports more competitive. It's going to make athletes factor in different things when they're making decisions on their futures, and they should be in charge of those decisions because their body's on the line week in and week out. Because like we see with Carson Wentz, you never know. It could just be a practice where they find a bone injury in your foot from high school, and it derails your career. So take advantage when you have the advantage, and just do what you want. Make the organization have what you want, and just do it. And if you don't like it, then quit watching sports, because guess what? That's just what's going to happen. That's just how it is.
You know, it's funny. I hear that quit watching sports statement so much, but, obviously we're not quit watching sports because they're still around and the ratings are still fine. And it's at the end of the day, and we see very similar topics like this going on in college athletics now with the NIL, but at the end of the day, people are coming to watch these players. They're buying these players' jerseys and like their likeness. The players are what brings in the revenue to each organization, and they're the ones that have control of mostly how good or bad a team is. Now, obviously, these types of player power positions don't obviously come with just, a guy that may not even make the roster in training camp or whatever. This has to be earned. Everything is an earned process in here, in life, at that. But when you have a player that is as talented as Aaron Rodgers, that many people are coming willing to see, that has been a part of a Super Bowl, that has won a Super Bowl, has won 3 MVPs, the least you could do is have him have a say over what goes on in the organization, because we're not out buying, Matt LaFleur's jersey as a coach, with a big shirt that says coach on it and then LaFleur on the back, or, we're not out there buying the GM's jersey. Fans are here to see Aaron Rodgers, and that's it. Aaron Rodgers and players like Aaron Rodgers that perform at a high level. So a guy that has been well established within the organization for years should absolutely have a say. Now, do I say run the show, balance it out to what you think is appropriate, but he's earned that. And if he wants to get a receiver, well, gosh darn it, get him a receiver. You know,
Yeah.
it's not that hard. You know, you get down to it. We all, as people, we all mostly want the same things, and that's to be treated right. As you said, as the point you alluded to, how many times do people on a daily basis leave a job because it's not a good fit for them? You might have somebody else in the corner saying, "Oh, you made good money with that job. Why did you leave?" "Oh, I wasn't happy." And then in normal conversations, it's like, "Oh, makes sense. Do what makes you happy." But then in the entertainment world, not even just sports, but in the entertainment world, these players are and actors and musicians and whatever are viewed in such a different light that all we look at is how much revenue they're bringing in and not what is actually going on behind closed doors. Because at the end of the day, money is great. Money, I mean, can fix a lot of problems, but it can also cause a lot of problems at the same time. So money doesn't solve everything. At the end of the day, you have to do what is best for you. So, I mean, and another point that you alluded to, say I had a job, I was really good at it. Went a lot of places with it, but not where I wanted to go. But then another place opens up where I get to work with my friends and we could go even farther. I'm comparing, and then no one would blame me for leaving, but I'm comparing that situation to LeBron James leaving Cleveland the first time and going to Miami. He was a great player in Cleveland. We all know that. Took them to the finals a year, but they weren't doing enough around him. They have a generational talent, and they were not doing enough around him to deliver championships. Not just one, not just two, but multiple. And so when the opportunity arose for itself to him to go play with Dwayne Wade, go play with Chris Bosh in South Beach of all places, why not take advantage of that? So I think it's good that we're starting to move that way in society to where we're accepting the fact that these players have power. And here's another thing, and translating that into what we're seeing in the college sports with the NIL. This is a move that should have happened a long time ago. Anytime college athletics, to put in perspective, are the only people in America that can create an image, a likeness that generates revenue and at one time legally not be allowed to receive compensation to it. And there's still a percentage of people out there that think that's even a myth. Okay, we'll look at Zion Williamson, for example. The kid blew through his shoe on national television and Nike stock plummeted $1 billion overnight. You mean to tell me that these players don't have power or revenue? Get a hold of yourself, man.
Real. Gotta get real.
And so this is a conversation that should have happened sooner. But given it needs these press conferences like Aaron Rodgers to be talked about. And I don't know. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but this is something that I feel like should have happened a long time ago, and we're finally progressing to it. And I'm happy to see that as a sports fan.
I agree. There's no doubt about it. I mean, people don't realize that like free agency in general started with Supreme Court cases about whether or not you could leave a team or not. So I mean, it's not like athletes have always been like free to do whatever they damn well please. There were draconian restrictions in place on a lot of them. And it's only now, even in like our lifetimes, basically, that we've seen athletes take control and decide they want to be in charge of their careers. And it's a good thing. For a while, I mean, athletes weren't. That's the bottom line. They made money, they made good money. But it's not the same as like being in charge of your career and being LeBron James. Well, I guess he could, but LeBron James just couldn't wake up one day and say, "I'm tired of being a Cleveland Cavalier. I'm not coming into work anymore." Just like the same way you couldn't. So I think it's great. I mean, this is just them being humans. We as humans do things. We get unhappy. We get tired of situations. We have the right to do something about it. So I think people are acting kind of silly when they act like this is just like a new horrible thing, not realizing that players didn't always have options like they do now. This is a new frontier, and it's going to take some getting used to, but you're going to have to get used to it.
An idea that I cannot stand is that a percentage of the population believes that entertainers are just robots that are strictly put on this planet for one thing, and that's to entertain us. And as fans, they often get spoiled with that, and they end up saying and believing these unrealistic things. I mean, as we talk about the Colts earlier in the podcast, when Andrew Luck decided to retire almost unexpectedly, you know, the reaction he got from Colts fans. What disgusting. The hell, Andrew, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember seeing posts on social media about talking about how this is a disgrace to the season ticket holders. I'm like, what the hell does Andrew Luck care about those season ticket holders? He's got to do what's best for him. If he wants to be healthy for his newborn daughter, which was a big reason why he retired, then why the hell can't he be healthy for his family? Yes.
How many of those people
his
who posted
family, that? Vin Diesel meme aside, it's the truth.
Is that where you were going with that? You did not just Dom Toretto me. But secondly, Les, I'd also like to ask how many of those people have ever had a lacerated kidney? If you've never had a lacerated kidney, shut up about Andrew Luck's, please. Because you don't know what it's like. You just don't. That's the bottom line. You are not an athlete. You are a middle manager. You don't know what it's like to be hit by a 500-pound man going 200 miles an hour wearing a football helmet who wants to kill you. You don't. Stop acting like you do. Stop saying you know what a disgrace to the sport is when you played Pee-wee football. That's it. Forget it. Not your life. Move on. Bottom line.
It's easy for someone to say that when they're sitting in a recliner drinking a beer while Andrew Luck's getting the shit beat out of him every weekend by beyond a lackluster offensive line. And then not to mention the hit that lacerated his kidney was, you know, the player that lacerated his kidney, I know you may or may not have heard of him, but yeah, Von Miller, that name ring a bell? I mean, yeah, one of the most elite pass rushers in NFL history.
That's the guy from the Old Spice commercials.
Right, with the big glasses. Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that. I just thought he was an Old Spice spokesman.
Yeah, I mean, football's a side job. Old Spice is commercials is his main job. He thought he'd give this football thing a try, so.
Gotta have a side hustle.
Exactly. Oh, but it just drives me a batty, Matt. Like, people don't understand that other people have feelings. This is why I'm proud of what Simone Biles is doing right now, because she's prioritizing her mental health over her career. That might be one of the best decisions she's made for her career. As successful as a gymnast as she has been, prioritizing your mental health is the number one thing you can do for yourself.
I'd like to propose a new rule. If you criticize an athlete that horribly, whether it be Simone Biles or Andrew Luck, you have to do that sport for a week and see how you feel after a week, and then see if you can reevaluate your statement.
You have no idea how much I would love for that to happen, because, you know, especially when you have those armchair quarterbacks that criticize, you know, some of the top quarterbacks in the league, and it's like, oh, you try to make a throw to a receiver 40 yards downfield with Aaron Donald or Von Miller, since we brought him up, rushing in your face, and tell me how easy it is. When half the time you can't even throw a beer can 10 yards, yet you want to throw a football 40 on spot to a receiver moving 100 miles an hour, changing directions over a defensive back's outstretched arms with a freaking beast just attacking you or ready to rip your head off. Yeah, you tell me how easy that is, bud.
Wearing pads.
Mm-hmm.
Or get on a balance beam. I bet half of them can't even do that.
I'm going to be honest, I can't get on a balance beam.
I can't get on a balance beam. That's why I don't criticize people. But if you're going to do that, I would recommend you, if you're all about walking a mile in other people's shoes, then do it. Mm-hmm. Just do it. See how you feel afterward, you know? Just see. With your coach and fans yelling at you, hurling obscenities at you because they're drunk or they're just mad you missed the throw.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Do it. If you think you'd be so good at it and you never give up, do it.
You know, this reminds me of an article I read when I was in college, you know, and I wrote a piece on the impact of concussions in sports. And I read one of those scholarly articles that they had us read, you know, for research purposes. And one of the proposition that Brian Westbrook, I believe it was Brian Westbrook, the former running back for the Eagles, he made for people that criticize NFL players for wanting to retire early or whatever. He said, I wish there was a way that a fan could wear like a suit and pick a player on a team and press a button, and that suit would make them feel everything that a player feels out on the field that day. And he says, I guarantee you people would stop watching football.
I guarantee it, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine. Well, unless you pick the kicker.
Right. But, I mean, I would say let's not leave the kicker as an option, or even the punter for that matter. But yeah,
they're athletes too, but they're not on the field enough to get hit the way other people are. Even though it would be cool to be Rodrigo Blankenship for a day.
that would be cool to be Rodrigo Blankenship. I mean, I would love just to wear the specs for a day. We could rock
Rodrigo
the specs for a day.
I know. I'm close, but hey, Rodrigo Blankenship, if you're out there, send us a postcard, please.
No, or hop on this podcast.
Yes, that would be even better.
We'd love to have you on the show.
The hot rod in the bedroom of nerds. I like it. You probably respect the Funko Pops. That's my drip, you know.
The hot rod in the bedroom of nerds. That makes me want to do the show, that entire show, in like a race car bet.
Oh man, that would be cool. Live with Hot Rod in the hot rod bed in the bedroom of nerds. War podcast.
Say that 10 times fast. Wow.
I don't think I could, or I might end up saying something that sounds like a curse word or something. We'll lose our monetization. I don't know.
Now, we say this all about about power to the players and the impact, but obviously there have been cases in the past where some players have had more of a say or influence within their own organization than maybe some might. So, Matt, yes. I think it's time to transition to the last part of the podcast where we talk about the players that have had the most influence within their organization. And I guess that means I'm going first.
Yes, it does, because I've got a twist for you.
I can't wait for it. So, I'm going to start with number 5. And this is one that you and I are both going to relate to, because not only was this player one of the best at his position in league history, but he was also like having a coach on the field, and that is Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning had his head in his ear in every free agent talk that the Colts had. He had a say in every decision that they made concerning the offense, and this guy, even most of his career, called the plays. And people talk about system quarterbacks. Peyton Manning was the system. So that's why I had to put him at my number 5.
I think that's fair. I mean, Peyton Manning, especially in Denver, when we go into that second phase of his career, when you look back at what Denver was doing with Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, and that they had the great defense in place. And then they went out and got some good offensive guys, Demaryius Thomas, like I said, Julius Thomas. Oh, who's the other receiver? He went to the Jets. Crap. Eric Decker. That's his name. Guy from Minnesota. When they made moves like that, they got better offensive players. And even in Indianapolis, you could tell who Peyton wanted and did not want on that roster. So that's more than a fair pick, because Peyton Manning, when you've got a guy like the Sheriff, who's as memorable and beloved in his cities as he is, you got to keep a guy like that happy, because not only is he a great player, he's an even better personality to have in your pocket for events, free agency, and as a face of your franchise.
And if my description doesn't tell you enough, his nickname was the Sheriff, as in he was calling the shots. So moving on to my number 4, and that would have to be a guy. As we go from one guy's nickname as the Sheriff, we go to another nickname as the Captain, and that is Derek Jeter. Look, I don't even think I even have to describe the impact that Derek Jeter had in the Yankees organization and just how well respected he was, not just on the Yankees, but in the baseball scene in general. So I had to put Jeter into my number 4.
I think that's more than fair. I mean, think about how long that core 4 of the Yankees lineup stayed together. You don't think there were times when the Yankees brass wanted to trade Jorge Posada or Bernie Williams for somebody who might have been a little bit younger or a little bit that suited the team's need for that season? But I don't think Derek Jeter would allow that. And even then, they still went out. They got A-Rod. They got CC Sabathia. They did everything they could to put Jeter in a position where Jeter could win. And when you got, and I mean, we all made fun of Jeter for dating all those supermodels, but I think we honestly forget how good of a player he was at some points because he became a media icon. And that's what played into it. He's a media icon. He's more than just the captain of the Yankees. He's a World Series champion. He's a first ballot, nearly unanimous Hall of Famer. He should have been unanimous, but
Say, yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Should have been unanimous. Was very close to unanimous. And I mean, if you got a guy like that, I don't really know what to say about what he's doing in his other management positions because sometimes they flummox me. But Derek Jeter, the player, yeah, by far. Got to keep him happy. Got to keep who he wants on the roster.
All right, moving on to I'm going to put 2 and 3 together because they're both soccer players, but I just say these names and they kind of speak for themselves. Number 3 is David Beckham, and number 2 is Cristiano Ronaldo.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Messi.
Messi's got his impact on soccer, but I'm talking strictly impact within his club teams or the teams he plays on.
Okay.
So.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I don't really know much about the Premier League other than, David Beckham, much like Derek Jeter, is one of those few guys who transcended his sport in a lot of ways. I mean, we all saw Bend It Like Beckham when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you got a guy like that, I mean, I'm just thinking about, and this is even when he was really good. Remember when David Beckham came and played for the LA Galaxy and it was the biggest news in the history of sports? And they went out and got Landon Donovan to come back, and they went out and got some other foreign guy. I think he was a Brazilian national player. I mean, if he could do that to the MLS, I can't imagine the impact he had for like Man U over in England, which is one of the big clubs. Ronaldo, we always talk about Ronaldo in conjugation with Messi. So I really haven't ever thought of them as like two independent figures other than that really terrible statue of Ronaldo they put in that airport. Yeah, don't do the face. It scares me. Oh God, that's terrifying. I can't even do that crooked smile they had him doing. But you're totally right in that too. I mean, we just don't think about those. We just don't think about the impact soccer players have in America because number one, we call it soccer and not football, and number two, and elsewhere, just because we just don't watch those games. Nobody's really into La Liga over here. But you're totally right. I mean, those guys transcend their sport. They have an immediate impact whenever they walk into a room. Like I said, David Beckham impacted the entire MLS, and he was washed. No offense to David Beckham, but I almost said Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham. David Beckham, who was pretty much washed when he came over here, no offense, could cause that kind of impact in MLS. I mean, there's no doubt, no question.
So before I get to my number 1, I'm going to give an honorable mention here, a guy that I thought about putting on this list, but I just thought the others edged him out a little bit, and that is the guy who talks in third person, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Look, in his own words, Zlatan gets what Zlatan wants. So I thought about putting him on here, but I decided not to. But my number 1 most influential player in their organization, and I think it has to be none other than La GM, La Coach, or AKA also known as LeBron James. In the wise words of Patrick Beverley during the COVID restart of the NBA bubble, if LeBron says we're playing, we're playing.
Yep.
Case point, period. We're talking about a guy that controls pretty much every team he plays on's free agent moves. He controls who the coach is going to be, damn near. And as Patrick Beverley says, when the NBA goes on a hiatus and they're talking about restarting the league and some players are worried about coming back for COVID, when LeBron says we play, we play. So I think LeBron has to be my number 1 pick as most influential to their organization.
No question. I mean, you hit the nail on the head pretty much with that statement. What LeBron wants, LeBron's going to get. Not even Kobe could get the Chris Paul trade through. But LeBron, he can get Russell Westbrook. He can trade for whoever he wants, and he can create whatever team he wants. And if he says they're going to play, if he wants it, they're getting it. If LeBron said he didn't want that play-in tournament, there would be no play-in tournament. If LeBron said that he wanted the NBA Finals moved to the moon, the NBA Finals would be in the Sea of Tranquility, because that's what you got to do for a guy like LeBron James.
Well, maybe him and Bezos should talk if they're going to play on the moon, but
that would be pretty cool, actually.
That would be really cool.
On the moon. Oh gosh.
Oh, we think we got some high flying dunks now. Oh, imagine what that zero gravity would do.
Zero G dunking. Nikola Jokic would still win MVP because he would just like loft the ball like halfway into the air and just let someone spin around and dunk it.
Right. He'd win MVP off his assists alone. He would get off lobs. Or even better yet, we would see Nikola Jokic dunk on people. Something we don't see in the NBA now.
That would be a magical experience, Les. I'm not gonna lie to you.
From
That would be.
from drinking 2 liters of Coke a day to playing 0G basketball. You gotta love
On
it.
the moon.
These are the stories that make sports fans happy. But Matt, I think I'm ready to hear your take on this topic.
All right. So here we go.
I'm gonna make myself comfortable so I can hear everything you're saying.
Okay. So Les, when he presented this list to me, I was like, well, I agreed with Les totally. I knew LeBron James was going to be my number one. So the more I thought about it, the more I realized, damn, there are a lot of guys who are going to overlap on this list, and we're talking about player empowerment being a recent thing. So I am going to do something that's going to bite me in the ass very hard and tell you the top 5 players in the next, if we were to have this conversation 5 years from now, who we're going to be talking about in the same context as these guys like Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James. Now, I do have a little bit of criteria. One, I tried to aim for guys who are kind of in the same situation that guys like LeBron and Aaron Rodgers are in. Small market teams, fairly competitive, but who are going to have all the power. And I think some of the names on here will surprise you, but I have a rationale for that. So, because surprise number one, Fernando Tatis Jr. is not on my list because it's very clear to me that the San Diego Padres are already doing everything within their power to keep him happy. He has a giant contract. He has a team where Adam Frazier, who started the All-Star game, is sitting on the bench. They're making it very clear to Fernando Tatis Jr. that they are going to win for him, and they're going to win now. So Fernando Tatis, not on this list. These are guys who are kind of in situations right now that could go either way to me, where they could be Mondo successful or end up with a dumpster fire franchise and demand a trade. So I'm going to try to rationalize these as I go, and Les, feel free to interject. But I'm going to go ahead and start with number 5 from the world of baseball, Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals. A transcendent outfielder with a big pop in his bat. And he's already got a World Series ring. He was actually part of that team that won back in 2019. But we look at the Washington Nationals franchise right now. As we hit on earlier in the show, Scherzer is gone. Trey Turner is gone. Anthony Rendon is gone. Ryan Zimmerman is 95 years old. And Juan Soto, he is a transcendent player. He's one of the great up-and-coming outfielders in all of baseball. And that roster is completely barren. But Juan Soto is such a good player and such an exciting player. We saw this in the home run derby, that in 3 years, he's going to be up as a free agent, and the Washington Nationals have no excuse to not roll the Brinks truck up to his house and start putting in the money. The question is, how does Washington respond? Do they keep building a good roster with prospects? How does that pan out? And number 2, are they going to be stingy about it like the Cubs were, not give a lot of money, and the next thing you know, Juan Soto's on the New York Yankees? So number 5, in 5 years, most impactful player in terms of player management, Juan Soto. Number 4. Now I am taking a jump here with this one too, because I know the history of this franchise. I know they have a tendency to get superstars and then let them walk. And number 4, unless this one's going to shock you, LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets. Already he's got a Rookie of the Year under his belt. He's becoming one of the great, exciting players to watch in this league. And I'm hearing rumors right now that the Charlotte Hornets are going to trade for Lauri Markkanen. Like, that's going to keep LaMelo Ball happy. Yes, they're going to sign LiAngelo. He's on the summer ball roster. But if LaMelo Ball continues on that trajectory he's on right now, being the pure passer, Rookie of the Year type player he is, I can't see him staying in Charlotte for too long. Charlotte has, other than LaMelo Ball, a notorious history of drafting mediocre to middling players. I mean, I love Cody Zeller as an IU guy, but an all-star he is not. And we know that Michael Jordan sometimes, he frankly stinks as a GM. He frankly does at times. There are times he makes a good decision, times he doesn't. So because of all that, the fact his star is rising even faster than his brothers did, if he stays healthy, I can't see how LaMelo Ball isn't the fourth most impactful young player who's going to demand a king's ransom from his franchise. So number 4, I got LaMelo Ball.
I want to interlock on that one because I think you thought I might find that surprising, but I don't at all. Because you look at LaMelo's dad, LeVar, and how his whole image, and especially since LaMelo got drafted, was a guy who called the shots. He's a guy who told us that all 3 of his sons were going to be playing in the NBA one day. And I look at LaMelo and I look at the other 3 Ball brothers, and LaMelo has the closest personality to LeVar as the other, and more so than the other 3 do. So when I look at LeVar and a guy that's been historically known to call shots and demand crazy things and make even the craziest statements, or king's ransom as we should, LaMelo is definitely that guy. You look at the personality and the image he was even prior to joining the NBA, when he was still playing in the NBA, the new NBL, or even in high school, or playing professionally overseas as a high schooler. I mean, and this guy, LaMelo, is also one who I think has already changed college athletics, who has also transitioned college to adopt the NIL. Because being the fact that because the NCAA realized with their old rules, being that LaMelo had already profited off of playing professional ball in high school, he was never going to be eligible to play in the NCAA. And I think that is one of the things that college, the NCAA missing a player and a talent of LaMelo Ball coming to play in college hurt them in such a way that they knew they had to make a change. So I'm 100% on board with LaMelo Ball, and I would not have been surprised if you had him even higher on this list, to be completely honest.
All right. Well, good to know I'm not totally off base here, because I think number 3 is also going to be a little bit surprising to you, because I'm going with the other son of a famous baseball player, which is Vlad Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. Because I look at the Toronto Blue Jays, yes, they have a good roster. They had a lot of all-stars this year. They've got George Springer. They've made it very clear that they're going to try their best to win. The problem I have with the Toronto Blue Jays is that they share a division with the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Baltimore Orioles. And they may get better. I don't know anything about the Baltimore Orioles. Who am I kidding? But Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a guy who's beloved in Canada. He has a chance to be an international type superstar, and he's already done a lot. He's an all-star. I mean, we've seen many highlight videos of his home runs. He is the most exciting thing the Toronto Blue Jays have had since Jose Bautista got punched in the face. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that division is so tough because the Yankees are perennially pretty damn good. The Red Sox are perennially pretty damn good. And out of nowhere, the Rays have become perennially pretty damn good. That it may take a lot of money and a lot of effort to get him to stay in Toronto, because there's limited opportunity for a ring in baseball. Baseball is the one sport where when people talk about the Hall of Fame, nobody goes, oh, we only has one World Series title, because it's so freaking hard to win a World Series the way baseball does the playoffs. And you're not going to make the playoffs if your division is going to eat each other alive, because you have 2 of the historically great franchises, an up-and-coming great franchise, and the Baltimore Orioles, who can be good every once in a while. So I would say Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to have a lot of say in that Toronto Blue Jays franchise going forward, especially in 5 years when he'll have around 6 all-star appearances and God knows how many home runs if he stays healthy.
That one surprises me more than LaMelo, just not because of the transcendent talent that Vladdy Jr. is. I absolutely love Vladdy Jr. The guy's got a chance to win the Triple Crown this year. If it weren't for what Shohei Ohtani's doing right now, he would be my AL MVP frontrunner. But I just look at his personality. That's why, and I just don't see that. But at the same time, I don't know him. So who am I to say? So that one, I was a little more surprised, but don't get it twisted. I love me some Vladdy Jr.
All right. My number 2 is the most unsatisfactory statement you can imagine, because I actually have a tie for number 2. Because I have 2 of the great young quarterbacks in our league, one of whom hasn't even played a snap yet, And of course, that guy is Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, he's sunshine. He's marketable. But the Jaguars are a dumpster fire. Let's not kid ourselves. This franchise has made 2 AFC championship games, and they're hoping that Trevor Lawrence takes them to more. But you look at the decisions that some decisions they've made already with Urban Meyer at the helm, the Tim Tebow thing being like the most egregious of them all, and you're just kind of shaking your head like, how is this kid going to succeed? Jacksonville's a small market. You've got Indianapolis, who is usually pretty competitive. You've got Tennessee, who's really competitive, trying to go for it. And hell, we don't know what Houston's going to look like. You never do. I mean, they could get a good draft pick. They could turn this Deshaun Watson fiasco into like the boon of their franchise. And the AFC isn't going to be any easier because you're going to have Patrick Mahomes still in Kansas City, God willing. You're still going to have Jared Allen, Josh Allen up in Buffalo. Who knows what the other rookie quarterbacks in your class are going to do? And you never know with Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence is going to share the number 2 spot with a guy who's already been injured once in Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you were probably thinking I was going to go with Justin Herbert here, but I think Justin Herbert is going to benefit a lot from being in an LA market, which is half of being happy. Like you said, LeBron went to go play in South Beach after playing in Cleveland. LA is beautiful. You have marketability. You have the beach. You have, Sunset Boulevard. You've got everything. You've at least got the social life factor in LA, even if the team is bad. But Joe Burrow plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. I love Cincinnati, but I don't think it's anybody's idea of like a vacation destination. It's a good place for a day trip. And he's already been let down by the franchise once, but he's proven how good he could be. You and I saw that firsthand when he led the Bengals to a double-digit lead on that Colts defense, which was considered one of the best in the league. And we've seen him like already be let down by the franchise once when he basically blew up his knee. And I think he's already proving that he's got a lot of say in that draft room because of the way they got Jamar Chase, because they're teammates, they're friends, stuff like that. And if Joe Burrow comes back healthy and he comes back eager to play and plays like he did in games like that first half against the Colts, where it looked like it was going to be a blowout because of the way he was tossing that ball around, that he's going to demand a lot of that Cincinnati Bengal franchise. And the bad thing is that we know that Cincinnati Bengal franchise does not budge. Look at Carson Palmer. Look at Chad Johnson Ochocinco. They don't give anybody anything. But I think maybe the Bengals will try to rectify the mistakes of the past by keeping Joe Burrow happy. So that's why at number 2, I've got a toss-up between Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence.
I'm going to say, Matt, it's so funny that you said Trevor Lawrence on this podcast because before you became a co-host, there was a running joke on this podcast that Trevor Lawrence is my son. So I'm so glad that my son is getting recognition once again on this podcast.
I have reunited you with your child, my friend.
My long-lost son.
I'm bringing people together. And I don't think my number 1 is going to surprise you at all, even though it's a bigger market, because I'm going to put at number 1 a guy who just beat, I think it was Germany, in the Olympic Games to improve to a 16-0 record for Slovenia, which is Luka Doncic.
Not at all. No surprise at all.
I look at the Luka Doncic situation in Dallas, and I can already see that Mark Cuban is got his gears turning. He's thinking of anything he can do to keep Luka Doncic in a Mavericks uniform and keep him happy for as long as he needs. He knows what it takes because that's what he did with Dirk Nowitzki. But the West is different now, more than even so than it was in 2011. So Luka Doncic is one of the transcendent basketball players of our time. And you look at his roster, I think he's already negotiating the elimination of Kristaps Porzingis in a Mavericks uniform. He's going to send him somewhere else. I think he's going to have a lot of say going forward because of that. So I think Luka Doncic in 5 years is going to be the player we're talking about to be very similar to what Aaron Rodgers is going through now. Very much trying to take control of the franchise, very much trying to get his guys in there, and very much trying to get a ring. Now, before I wrap up, I didn't put Patrick Mahomes on there because he's already got a ring, and it's very clear, much like Fernando Tatis, that the Chiefs are doing everything right now to get him to a third straight Super Bowl. Otherwise, you don't revamp that offensive line like that. So Juan Soto, LaMelo Ball, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and Luka Doncic, guys on small market-ish teams, guys on teams that, are a little bit afraid to spend money, who are going to be playing an Aaron Rodgers type role because of transcendent greatness if they stay healthy in 5 years.
And all I'm going to say is that I keep remembering that quote by Mark Cuban. If he had a choice between his wife and Luka Doncic, he'd show up with the divorce papers the next day. So that should tell you the impact Luka has already within the Dallas Mavericks organization. But that is going to wrap up another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports channel and comment in the section below what you liked, what you didn't like, and who are your top 5 most influential athletes within their organization. I would also like to take this time to dedicate this podcast to a friend that I lost over the weekend, DJ Robinson. So rest in peace, buddy. And but that's going to wrap it up. Me and Matt are out.
Bye.